And the support and the feedback that we're getting indicates that's what people want. They don't want to see a bunch of 50-something-year-old gray-haired guys yelling at each other about shit that happened 15 years ago. And, I mean, let's face it, there was 15 years ago when WCW started their march to the top with the same talent that TNA's trying to use now. Bill Clinton was still president.
Look, let me say this. I'm a huge Hulk Hogan fan, and I'm sure that, puts you and me on different wavelengths on certain things. But even I noticed something on Impact, and I'm sure you picked up on, and I'm not sure if you commented on it before, but Hogan stood in the ring during that show that had 60 minutes of wrestling and said, "We're the show that brings you more wrestling." Meanwhile, he went on to talk for another 10 minutes before they had another match.
I'm not going to knock Hulk Hogan. I've never been. I was more the Flair side. I was the NWA side. But Hulk Hogan drew more money than anybody in the history of wrestling until Steve Austin The Rock. He's the icon, the name, the mainstream celebrity of modern-day wrestling. But he's also almost 60. He's also got an artificial hip. His ideas are outdated. He obviously has taken the TNA job because he needed money, and he saw Dixie Carter's checkbook. He's never been involved in something so low-rent and poorly planned in his entire career until it became a necessity. And at the same time, if he thinks bringing in other guys who are his age to rehash shit that happened in the 90s because it worked then for a while is not going to succeed. And besides that, when you talk about the Attitude Era, which really marked a renaissance of wrestling live attendance, ratings, etc., Vince Russo likes to take a lot of credit for that. Well, I'll give him the credit for the 2-minute matches and the transvestite blowjobs and, all the other bullshit that went on. The actors, he hates it when people say the name David Arquette. And he hates it when people bring up his, stinkiest bombs. But he takes credit for the Attitude Era. He didn't have anything to do with Steve Austin and The Rock getting over. The fans got them over because they had incredible talent, and they both came along at the same time. And Vince Russo was in a position where he had the most successful promoter of modern days, Vince McMahon, editing him. He had the 2 biggest stars of all time in the business to work on the program that he was writing. He had a network-quality production facility editing that program, and he had the greatest announcer in the history of wrestling, Jim Ross, calling the program. Even he couldn't fuck that up, and he can fuck anything up. And so Steve Austin and The Rock were what made the Attitude Era and the angle between Vince McMahon and Steve Austin, but Vince Russo hot-shotted the television program. And everybody knows that every period of hot-shotting, where you throw everything out there and see what'll get over, is, yes?
Sorry. I said the bottom falls out. Sorry. Go ahead.
Everybody knows every period of hot-shotting is followed by, boom, the bottom falls out and you can't follow it. And the smart promoters always knew when to back up. But Vince Russo is not smart or a promoter. It wasn't his money. So he never backed up. And they burned out the engine. And, I mean, all the evidence is there. Less is more with the UFC and everybody. Well, it's real. It's real. It doesn't matter. If you're going to draw a crowd, start a fight, right?
Right.
Okay. When you advertise 2 unique, different personalities that are good athletes and marketable and charismatic, and you put them in a position where they're going to fight and you're going to sell tickets to it, you market the match. The match is important. Who's going to win? What's going to happen? Same thing in professional wrestling. And that is what Vince Russo is woefully inadequate at doing, and that's what the modern promotions now continue to give the people is they don't make an emotional investment in the programming. They don't care who wins the matches. They've been made meaningless by the trivial skits that people turn off and they boo in the arenas. They paid their good money to see midgets running around. And nobody but Ring of Honor is addressing these issues. So, I've always said Vince Russo is the only booker I've ever seen. He doesn't get people over, he gets people under. But that's, the same thing is going on in the WWE. How many major stars they've pushed people or tried to push them or pushed them for a little while and given up, but how many major stars have they made in the last 5 years?
I can't name one.
On this show, we've talked extensively about what happened to CM Punk and how I personally thought he was the best thing in the company, and then they just flushed him down the drain.
Well, yeah, because, we got to remember we got to protect the guys that are 40-something. I've never seen a situation where these guys had to go and pass all these tests and had to make sure that they were politically correct in the locker room. Professional wrestling was always about a bunch of cowboys, a bunch of politically incorrect individuals, wild men, Wild West, going out there and getting over because that's the way that you make stars and sell talent. Well, now it's sort of like the Harlem Globetrotters. You get the WWE, you get the Harlem Globetrotters. If you get the WWE with Cena, you're happy. If you get the Harlem Globetrotters with Meadowlark Lemon, you're happy. But if it turns out to be the team with Curly Neal, and of course I'm dating myself now, or the team with fucking Rey Mysterio, you're equally as happy because it's the WWE, it's the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yep.
It's Holiday on Ice. There's no stars anymore because they won't allow them to be made.
Now, I wanted to ask you about this because I've seen the Jimmy Garvin released a couple years ago the backstage tape from behind the Great American Bash, and it was funny stuff. You were doing your Rodney Dangerfield impression, and there was a whole lot of funny stuff going on. The Road Warriors were being the Road Warriors. Sting and Luger, young Luger was...
Yeah, well, Jimmy had just gotten his video camera on that summer tour, the Bash tour, and was shooting a bunch of stuff. I didn't know he was going to sell it on eBay 20 years later.
Well, yeah, but if you watch that, you guys... It wasn't a big deal if you were wearing a T-shirt or not, and apparently that's why CM Punk was de-pushed, because he was on tour in the UK with WWE and he had a T-shirt on instead of a suit jacket.
Hey, well, you know, here's the thing. We were on such a schedule. My book, The Midnight Express and Jim Cornette 25th Anniversary Scrapbook, which is available at jimcornette.com, by the way, you know, it gives our complete tour schedule for the 7 years that we were a team together. And in some cases, we had 14 matches in a week between television tapings and double shots on Sunday. They were lucky we got there dressed in clothes at all. I mean, literally, in some months working for Mid-South Wrestling or for the NWA, we might have a day off, we might not have a day off that month. I believe in Mid-South the record was something like 107 days without a day off.
Wow.
Now, you know...
I heard the driving was horrible there, too.
It was challenging. And there's a lot of road stories in the book. It's available. It's only $25, 232 pages, 36 pages of color. I can't go on enough about it. But at any rate, you know, it was a better time because the guys were allowed to be the individuals that they were, and that's what translated on screen, and that's how nobody could tell Ric Flair how to be Ric Flair. Dusty Rhodes wasn't playing a role. He was Dusty Rhodes. Dick Murdoch was certainly not going to say anything that anybody wanted him to say. He was going to go out and get over and draw money. Terry Funk. They were all going to be individuals, and they were business, and they got the matches and themselves and their angles over. And if anybody had handed them a script, they would have spit in their face. So it's just, you know, once again, it's overly, wrestling has been homogenized, pasteurized, and sanitized for your protection like the wrapper on the toilet seat at the Super 8. And that's why, you know, I'm excited to be with Ring of Honor because the guys work hard. It's the youngest talent roster in the business. They're allowed to be individuals and go out and do their thing. The television show, which I'm going to take more of an interest in now that I'm the executive producer, obviously. I've done 2 tapings, and I've instituted some changes. People have liked things. But everybody there at Ring of Honor has done a great job. And we now just want to sell the great talent they have as more of the individuals that they are and let them come out of their shells and then let the fans decide who they like and who they don't like. I think that's the way it ought to be. And you may have read the press release on the big event that we're going to do April 3rd in Charlotte, Ring of Honor's debut in North Carolina, the Big Bang. It's going to be a tremendous event, and we're planning it as a showcase event to make the statement that Ring of Honor is the new style of professional wrestling. We're not your father's wrestling anymore. We're serious. We're credible. We can be taken as a sport. You don't have to be embarrassed if you're an MMA fan to watch Ring of Honor because these guys are athletes putting it on the line in the ring. But at the same time, it's still more of a feel of professional wrestling as a sport. I've always said I wanted to do wrestling with the logic of the 80s, but with stars that were born in the 80s. And now I actually have that opportunity, and Charlotte will be the next internet pay-per-view with our partners at Go Fight Live TV. We tried it out in December in New York, and there were some, you know, audio glitches, a few technical problems. We think we got that ironed out now, and we are marketing this event in Charlotte, like I said, to make a statement that pro wrestling will explode into the 21st century, and everybody in the world with a computer can see it live in their own home.
Now, the question I have for you is, will that work for the mainstream, though? Do you really believe that the people will go to it, and will Ring of Honor's outlet the internet, will that be able to reach anywhere near what we see with TNA or?
Oh, well, of course not.
But WWE, yeah.
Of course not. Well, I mean, actually, to be quite honest, I think our pay-per-view buys on the internet will rival a few of the pay-per-views that TNA did last year, because I got news. They wouldn't even tell you in the office how many buys there were. We think some of them dipped below 10,000.
Really?
And you know, and that's a tribute to Vince Russo, that he can get between 1 million and 1.5 million people to watch what he does for a living on television for free. But when it comes to converting those people to pay to see it, then immediately go, what is 15,000 to 1.5 million? Is that 0.01%? I can't do math in my head.
My math sucks, but yeah. That's
well, it's a very